What is one thing you're so hid from you until later in the relationship? I just found out that he's scared of snails and slugs after almost 13 years of marriage. My GF swoops her hair over her left eye. I thought it was just an emo hairstyle until I found out she was blind in one eye. He actually bought his favorite sweatshirt from Walmart. At first he told me Costco cause he thought it made him sound a little classier. One of my exes waited months to tell me that her godparents, that she lived with, were actually her ex-boyfriend's parents. I actually didn't mind it until he moved back in. My now husband acted like he knew how to grill steaks and just casually grabbed steaks and asked me how I liked mine and then made perfect steaks. Then continued making perfect steaks for months. Then years. And I just learned a month or so ago that the first time he made steaks for me was the first time he'd made steaks in his life. He'd just studied up intensely because he felt that I would be impressed by him making me a good steak. I thought he had been making steaks for years to throw down a perfect steak like it was no big thing. But it turned out he did a ton of research and was sweating bullets trying to get it right. He's the best. He didn't really hide it. But I never knew the story of how his first wife passed away until we were engaged. I only knew that she had CF, and that she died too soon. I didn't know that he came home from work, found her passed out and blue, and rushed her to the hospital himself, where she later died. He told me about it one evening when we were sitting in front of the Christmas tree. The whole story came pouring out of him, and I just hugged him and listened. His mother died 6 months after his first wife passed away, and to hear him tell it, it nearly broke him. I think it healed his heart a little to talk about it, and I know that it made me love him even more somehow. I'm just grateful that he was willing to open his heart up to love again. He is an awesome man and the best thing that has ever happened to me. Edit. Thank you for the gold. Kind stranger. This one is for Deb Bear, for Debbie, and for me. My GF. Now wife, and I had been living together for 2 years before I told her I watched Star Trek. I was worried she would think I was too nerdy. It was the early 90s. I had a VCR at my parents' house and I would have dinner with them once a week, and then watch the latest episode of The Next Generation. It all came out one week when my GF and I were both over for dinner. We were getting ready to leave, when my mom says, "Aren't you going to watch Trek first?" It was all out in the open. My GF immediately felt bad for me, saying she would never have judged me for watching Trek. She even watched a few episodes with me I had on VHS at my parents' home. She liked it, and thought the stories and themes were good. Trying to assuage my fears further, a few months later she surprised me with tickets for both of us to a Star Trek convention that was coming to town. So we went. After about 30 minutes walking around the con, seeing autograph booths, vendors, and cosplayers, she leaned into me and whispered lovingly in my ear, "You were right not to tell me." My SO didn't reveal until much later that a sizable inheritance came with the relationship. It was a wonderful surprise, especially because we were secure financially without it. That he hates sheets. About 4 years into the relationship he proclaimed that sheets wrap around him when he sleeps and he refuses to use them anymore. Apparently he's always hated sheets but just never mentioned it. He could do magic tricks. We were together for 13 years and one day he pulls out a deck of cards and says, "Pick a card. Any card." Ducker got my card and everything. Just as smooth as can be. Never did it again. He can sing beautifully. We had been together for 2 years before I heard him actually sing. He would belt out random lyrics in the car with me in a fun, playful, not serious way all the time. The first time I heard him actually feel it, I was blown away. He has such a deep, soulful voice. Ugh. Love him. Not me, but my parents. My mom told me a few years ago that on their first date they went out for pizza. My mom's favorite is ham and pineapple and my dad says, "Great, I love pineapple on pizza." Fast forward years and years of my dad eating ham and pineapple. He finally confesses that he hates it. He actually ate ETS pizza for 20 years instead of just admitting that he hates it. This was one of her life lessons for me when I started dating. My friend is dating a farmer. No, they didn't meet on farmersonly.com. They did meet online though. Anywho, They've been dating for 5 months at this time and he refuses to take her to his town and meet his family because he's had a lot of girls date him for what he owns. She waited a year and had no problems and he finally brought her to his town and house, and his family is a multimillionaire family. They own like 15 farms across the US. Their house is a ducking mansion. She was super scared to be in the relationship after that. They're still dating, but she tried to buy her own things and not depend on him and his money. He liked to punch walls and himself when angry. Until we were married, our disagreements were always discussions. Sometimes heated, sometimes angry, but never violent, and always worked out to a solution in the end. It was great. It was the way adults should argue. The first fight after the wedding, he put his fist through the wall of our rented apartment. He also slammed his head into the bathroom door. Why the change? I've been holding back my anger, but now that we're married, I know you can deal with the real me. Up until then, he'd been way more angry and violent than I'd known about, but had hidden it during fights so I wouldn't leave. Yeah, we're not married anymore, for many reasons, but one of them being that I never ever felt safe to disagree with him after that. That she enjoyed sex with men who were not me. That she liked the person I could become, not the one I was. Well, after 2 years my ex let me know that she liked women as much as I did. I've been with my girlfriend for 3 years and she still won't tell me why she can't listen to Jimmy Eat World. I don't know if she hid it or just didn't discuss it, but I didn't learn of her massive student loan debt until we were engaged. Well, I'm the one that hid something from her, that I was a smoker. It got to a point where I'd hidden it that long that to admit it would be pretty much lying by omission. And I really liked her. And that's the story of how I quit smoking. My ex-girlfriend hid the fact that she was on bipolar medication before we moved in together in NC after moving from NY. She then stopped taking her medication, and then quit her job, leaving me as the sole income for the two of us. I was 23 years old, and this was my first long-term relationship. We broke up a month after she quit her job. That was a very long month. It took me 4 years to tell my now wife I do not like my sandwiches cut in half. She still brings it up. His father is the Red Dragon for the KKK, which is a partial reason why he refuses to let me meet him. Why he didn't just say so to begin with, I have no idea. I found out that my significant other hides candy from me in her car. In fairness, she does this because she likes the occasional sweet, whereas I attack a bag of gummy bears like a starved hyena. When I was in college, I had no money and shaggy hair, so I was wandering around the dorms looking for someone who knew how to cut hair. A cute girl overheard me and said, "Hey, I know how to cut hair." She gave me a haircut in the hallway and then asked if I wanted to go to Steak and Shake. I said sure. It's been 13 years. We're married, and she still gives me haircuts. About 2 years into the relationship, she confessed that she had no idea how to cut hair but really wanted an excuse to hang out with me. She did it in the hallway and asked me to Steak and Shake because she didn't want me to look in a mirror and see the results. She's actually pretty good at it now, though. He brought me to a house party just a couple of weeks after we started dating. He pointed out a young lady and said he'd been dating her before me. What he didn't mention was that he failed to tell her that the relationship was over. No wonder she was giving me the stinky all night. I'm also 99% sure he was seeing someone else before we decided to get divorced, since he was spending all his time at the place his new girlfriend worked. Furthermore, I'm 99% sure he met someone else before they broke up, several years later, based on how they met and when they started dating. There's a pattern here. The pattern is that my ex is a shitty relationship partner who exits a relationship, finds someone else, and only then does his partner know he's finished. Personally, I was the opposite with my so I laid it all out on the table right away. History of eating disorder now recovered, depression, anxiety, self-harm, abusive childhood, etc. Because I wanted him to know what he was getting himself into. I was his first everything and I sensed such a sweet innocence in him. It didn't seem fair to have him get emotionally invested in me and then feel trapped with a crazy chick due to guilt. I gave him every opportunity to bail and would not have blamed him one bit for running away. I was past a lot of my issues, but I still had quite a bit of emotional baggage when we met that I was still working on. Instead of scaring him off, he actually respected my honesty and fell for me harder. Now we're married and expecting our first child. Funny how things work out. So, when I was younger, my group of friends had this tradition of messing with people who passed out, drawing on them, stacking things on them etc. Anyway, one night I noticed there were a lot of people passed out, so I started bingo daubing everyone on the forehead. Then I realized I was the only one awake. Not only that, but I had bingo daubed the forehead of a girl I really liked. I didn't want her to get pissed off at me for bingo daubing her forehead, so I concluded, in my drunken stupor, that I had no other choice than to bingo daub myself, so I did. Years went by and it was always a mystery who bingo daubed everyone. The girl I liked at that party had been my girlfriend for several years now, and I finally decided to come clean. She thought it was hilarious, but let me tell you, that ink they use in those bingo daubers is really hard to clean off your forehead. I found out that she was married before, for a green card for him. She doesn't know that I know. Turns out we have pretty ducking nice china. Wasn't exactly hid, but I was never told and never noticed. I was the one hiding it from my so I was about as deep into addiction as you can get, but was putting on a very, if I must say so myself, convincing facade of normality. Wasn't until random it started disappearing from the apartment that I couldn't really hide it anymore. That was a conversation that will live in the history books. My ex-husband revealed 2 years into our marriage that he didn't want kids, had never wanted kids, and had only told me he did because he knew I wouldn't have married him otherwise. Which is true. We had talked about kids before even being engaged, so it's not like we hadn't discussed it on more than one occasion. I stuck around for another 2 years hoping to make it work, but ultimately decided the marriage wasn't worth saving. We had other issues in addition to that, but that was the big deal breaker for me. Luckily, I'm dating someone now who is absolutely amazing. It's like night and day compared to my first marriage. My ex told me he didn't have a Facebook. About a year into dating, long distance, he was a suggested friend. It didn't bother me initially, because it's possible he didn't use it or think it was important. Nope. He was very active with his IRL friends' family, some I knew, and listed himself as single. When I told him about it, he didn't give me a reason why, just told me to deal with it. He didn't have a reason to go behind my back or hide me from his friends' family. It bothered me that the ones who knew of me went along with it. It felt like he was hiding something, but I never found out. That was the beginning of our spiral downwards. Being long distance was hard enough, but he kept giving me reasons to not trust him. We broke up a year after that, and boy, was it messy. My ex hid a lot of things from me, in order of him revealing them throughout our 5-year relationship. 1. Year 1, he was an ex-meth addict. 2. Year 3, he still occasionally put meth in his body. I thought he was just an insomniac. 3. Year 3, he slipped up with the meth due to an unclear undiagnosed personality disorder, likely BPD. 4. Year 4, he was actually married to someone else, though estranged for 8ish years. And 5. Year 5, although he demanded monogamy from me, he had a long string of other girlfriends on the side throughout our entire relationship. This was the relationship ender. Finally, 6. After our breakup, he decided he was entitled to the $5,000 I had lent him over the course of our last year together and would not be paying it back. 7. Also after our breakup, he wasn't sorry at all. He seemed to need to tell me this via email for the next 5 months or so. I am embarrassed at how long I stayed with him. Been free and clear for almost a year now, and life is so good. That he had been temporarily sent to a place for troubled kids when he was younger. As a child he had blown up in class to the point where he had been screaming that he was going to kill everybody. Context: he was a little boy from Taiwan who barely spoke any English at the time and had just moved to the US. Some other kid in class kicked him and he retaliated. Teacher caught him and he couldn't speak well enough to explain that he didn't start it. and was the only one that got punished. He didn't like that and started getting agitated, and when no one understood he began yelling what he didn't know how to say. School called authorities and he got taken away. Stayed in that facility for a few weeks being fed meds and all that. He told me that the only reason he was compliant in there was because he was scared he would never see his mom again. He never told anyone else because he didn't want people to think he was crazy when he was really only a frightened little kid no one tried to listen to. I believed my wife was a broke yoga instructor for 3 months after we started dating. She doesn't do social media. Nope. Super hard ass corporate litigator. She doesn't like Star Wars. To be fair, she didn't know till I had her watch A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. She doesn't even want to watch Return of the Jedi. How gassy I was. I used to hold it all in until I could have the glorious post-date symphony. Now that we are married, there's no point in hiding my farts. In fact, I can't hide them. She gets woken up by the morning trumpet most mornings now. I hid the fact that I owned my own house for a few weeks during the beginning stages, until I really couldn't anymore. The last guy I dated said it was intimidating that I owned my own car at 23, so I didn't want to scare this one off by telling him I owned my own house at 25. He admitted later that it was intimidating lol. We're still together, so I guess it wasn't a huge deal. Not but me. When I was in my early teens, I was super self-conscious about my small boobs, 32A on a really good day, so I wore those bras that added at least 2 cup sizes. When my ex and I were getting serious as you can be at 15, I had to stop him and say, you know, those aren't real, when he was working towards taking my bra off. Nothing more awkward than you're so losing his hard-on when he finds out you've got little tits. The year is 2015 and I had been dating my wife, then girlfriend, for about 5 years. I was surprised to learn she had not seen Tropic Thunder, so I instituted an emergency movie night. At the end of the movie, Tom Cruise dances to Get Back by Ludacris. Imagine my surprise when my wife begins to sing along to the music, Methodicas and all. Believe me when I say that my wife does not look or act like the kind of person who listens to, let alone memorizes Zero's rap. I felt like I was sitting next to a stranger. I was so hiding a secret. My now wife didn't know for the longest time that I didn't like soccer or football. When I first met her, she had noticed that I came to class wearing 2 different soccer jerseys and thought I must have been a fan. They were both gifts from friends and fam who traveled overseas. She first approached me and tried to strike up conversation about it. Whenever she brought it up, I tried to play it off like I watched a lot because that seemed to be one of the things she liked about me. The charade was up one day when I didn't know what World Cup was and that it was currently on. Still not a true-born fan, but I make a point of watching it with her when World Cup's on and cheering for her team. That she was buying me non-kosher food to prove it's the same as kosher food when we first began living together. She was very wrong. Dated a guy for 2.5 years and would never tell me why he hated Barbara Walters so much. He would even tweet her mean things once in a while. I travel a lot, basically 9/12 months. And my girlfriend decided that long distance, which she knew about well in advance, was a tad too hard, so when I came back I found my key no longer worked and my stuff was in a storage box. Lovely. That she, now he, was transgender. I was completely supportive and encouraged him to go for taking testosterone. It just so happens that though I thought I was straight, I adore him so much that he's still a perfect match for me. Edit. I'm a cisgender dude. His job was actually selling weed. His roommate was actually his dad. He never graduated high school. I think he thought I was too rich or snobby for him at first. But now we have a house together and he has an amazing job. Still no GED. But we'll get there. I always planned on being the main breadwinner anyways. My wife knew the sex of our second child before birth and didn't tell me she knew for 7 years. She ran the budget and we were single income and she needed to know if we were going to have to buy boys stuff or reuse girls stuff. Also, I found out 7 years later that she was really hoping I wasn't going to propose at the moment I did. Been happily married to her for 13 years now and terrified to find out the next 7 years later tidbit. Oh. My now ex-boyfriend hid the fact that he would hire male prostitutes to come over to the house when I played damned with friends on Friday nights for 2 years. He also hid a coke addiction until year 3 of a 4.5-year long relationship. I helped him seek help and treatment, which I found out years later he never stopped doing it, even while attending classes and me being by his side. Turns out some people are just good at ignoring signs and stuff when they view life through rose-colored lenses. Edit. I am a gay man, for those that are wondering. Edit 2. BoJack Horseman. BoJack Horseman everywhere. That he enjoyed getting 3 previous exes pregnant, abandon her and the baby, and just disappear. He tried to do that with me. He'll know. That he was bisexual. He didn't tell me until we'd already been married for 2 years. I never cared that he was bi, but I didn't want an open relationship. Anytime I wasn't completely okay with him flirting with anything that moves or spending all his time out at bars, I was being homophobic. I tried to be understanding, but somehow everything was my fault. Then I found out he was cheating on me with both a guy and a girl, maybe more. That's all I could prove. Fun times. Early in the relationship I went out and got us breakfast, which included a bottle of orange juice from the supermarket. Classic orange juice with pulp ducking obviously. Anyway, 3.5 years later, she does the same thing for the first time and comes back with pulp free. After dry heaving and wiping the tears of fear and anger from my eyes, I pointed it out. She gives me a "you of it. Yee. Got the wrong one." Happens again months later. A trend emerges. She is consistently accidentally grabbing the wrong juice. She eventually broke down one rainy night and admits that she never liked pulp in her orange juice. She has suffered through 4 years of pulp in her OJ under my tyrannical rule. It was a hard few months. It took a lot of acceptance from both of us. She has accepted that I like pulp in my orange juice, and I had to come to terms with dating someone who doesn't have a soul. Edit. You all make me sick. Pulp-free orange juice is just orange flavored water. Take a look at yourselves in the mirror and change everything about your lives.